A map that depicts massive birds carrying elephants in Antarctica with no ice. Also, a map that shows the North Pole split into 4 different land masses, of which 4 massive rivers flow from the ocean into the center, where it falls into the bowels of the earth. Don't worry, it doesn't stop there. A lost book written by an ancient friar in the 1400s claiming to have seen giants that inhabited North America. He claimed that these giants had massive structures built all over the entire continent. Alright fam, here we go again. You already know the drill. This is the Urbano Monte of 1587 and the Gerard Mercators of 1569 and 1606. This amazing piece of art and history is located at Stanford University and is part of the David Rumsey map collection. At a size of 10 square feet, this is the largest known early map in the world, hand-drawn by Monte Urbano himself in 1587 out of Milan, Italy. Back in 2017 was the first time anybody had seen a unified version of the map. It was originally a 60-page manuscript, which makes it all the more amazing. And what's more mind-boggling is that Monte Urbano, when he made the map, actually planned for it to eventually be unified. Imagine the math and the calculation that was involved to make a 60-page map manuscript come together as one and actually be accurate. Y'all, check out this awesome chair sent to me by Ewin Gamer Chairs. Absolutely a piece of art. By far the most comfortable chair I've ever sat in as far as gaming chairs go. It has full-on lumbar support. You see the pillows. The armrests are adjustable. It's sturdy. One thing I will say, the last chair I had, every time I went to sit in it, the air was let out of the piston. Like it wouldn't hold pressure. So I'd have to raise it back up every time I sat in it. And over time, as I was sitting in it, working long hours, I'd end up being to the floor, finally realize it, letting myself back up. But that was so frustrating. This holds this pressure amazingly. It's got a recline that goes all the way back to pretty much horizontal. The instructions were great. Easy as all hell to put together. The leather, it's plush. It's plush. Beautiful. In the colors, I mean, could it be any more night god? It is truly the best gamer chair and arguably, to me, one of the best gamer chairs in the world, guys. 129 all the way up to 500. And what's more, they even have extra large gamer chairs. This is the Flash series, but they also have an XL that holds up to 500 pounds. Amazing piece of work, guys. Absolutely love it. Thank you so much for sending me this awesome chair. I mean, what can I say, you guys? I love it. Thank you so much. So if y'all are interested in one of Ewin's awesome gamer chairs, click my affiliate link in the description and use the code NIGHTGOD to earn 20% off. Don't miss out on this opportunity to get yourself one of the best gamer chairs in the business. But not much is known of Urbano Monte except for this map, and that he was born on August 15th, 1544 in Milan, Italy. And much to his luck, he was born into a wealthy family in the area. So, he never really held any conventional jobs. He just had time to do virtually whatever he wanted. So Monte would spend hours a day, almost as if it was his job, studying things like science, mathematics, and history. This would lead him to be a very intelligent person, so he could keep up in conversations with high-ranking officials, like ambassadors, for example. And one day, at the age of about 40, an ambassador from Japan came to meet with him. They would share stories back and forth about their homelands. And this greatly fascinated Urbano. It fascinated him so much so that he decided to get into cartography so he could study the world as it was known back then. Not only would he gather information from maps of old, but he'd also find himself interviewing travelers. He'd seek out the most seasoned travelers in his area and listen to their tales, listen to their stories of their encounters and the like. He'd hear stories of massive birds, known as rock birds, that would pick up elephants and take them back to feed their young. And though most of these seem to be absolutely fantasy, there has been birds of this size referenced in a number of texts throughout history. He'd even represent things like the region of giants in South America. He'd represent legends of half man, half beast creatures. Creatures that existed on a land that was little known. Lands that very few the weary traveler would make it back alive from. Lands like the ones inhabited by the Cyclops giants, that if you landed on them, you would not make it out alive. As you can see, Monte pulled no punches. He even represented the Leviathan. Truly one of the most amazing maps and works of art I've ever laid eyes on. Absolutely awesome. I'm going to go ahead and leave a link in the comments for you guys so you can see these maps in their entirety, especially this one. The link will allow you to zoom in without any blurring. So I'd like to know in the comments what y'all think. Do you think there could be some truth to some of these myths? Are they totally legend and lore, or is he representing them in a real situation? Looking forward to your opinions. And what makes this map even more intriguing is some of you may have noticed it has a north polar azimuthal direction, meaning it's oriented as if the North Pole is located in the center of it, rather than the top of it. What's even more fascinating about this is how he represents the northern Arctic as 4 islands that are separated by rivers that flow inward. Most likely, Urbano referenced older maps of the same time period when representing the Arctic. Older maps like Gerard Mercator's World Map of 1569. This is known as a cylindrical map, which we'll get into later. Right now, we're going to concentrate on the North Pole. As you can see, his and Urbano's map of the North Pole are very similar, but it's much different than anything we've ever seen or heard about the Arctic. In fact, as a part of his atlas years later, Mercator would revise the North Pole and republish it in a much more detailed fashion. Later, this map would be very controversial and eventually be deemed fantasy. Regardless, I feel it's important to take note of what it represents. Mercator is said to have sourced a detailed book that no longer exists that was written by an old Minorite friar of Oxford who claimed to travel to Norway, then push forward using special enchanted arts. The book was known as Inventio Fortunata, or Fortunate Discoveries. It writes that the large landmass was said to be divided by 4 rivers that flowed inward, and strange whirlpools then flowed into the bowels of Mother Earth herself. It is 4 degrees wide on every side of the pole, that is 8 degrees altogether, except that right in the middle of the pole lies a bare rock that stands in the center of the sea. Its circumference is almost 33 French miles, and it is all made of magnetic stone. Unfortunately, the Inventio Fortunata is a lost work, and little is known of it save that it was composed in the 14th century as a well-known resource for cartographers of the 15th and 16th century. The author of this work, again, is a figure of considerable mystery, and arguments have been made that he is Nicholas of Lynn, Thomas Kingsbury, or Hugh of Ireland. The work claims the monk traveled extensively into the northern lands, including Iceland, Greenland, Norway, and possibly even North America of old. And what he says he encounters there is baffling. He describes North America as a beautiful land, rich with wildlife. But more importantly, he called it the land of the giants. He claimed that they inhabited this land in great numbers, and that the buildings here were like nothing he had ever seen, and they were built with massive square stones. He said that these stones were often taller than his height, and that the only way these buildings were built with them was if the giants lifted them. That there was no way man of a normal stature would be able to travel these stones and build the structures built with them. He went on to say it'd be best to avoid these lands, as you may not be welcome, and that no man stood a chance against these 12 to 15 foot tall beings. But what's more fascinating is the Fortunata itself references a far older and similarly lost work, the Gestae Arthuri, which adds a new chapter to the legend of King Arthur, citing that his warriors conquered Iceland, Greenland, the Faroes, and parts of Norway, Regardless of the attribution of Mercator sources, the idea of the Arctic being divided into four lands surrounding a black magnetic rock was even in the 16th century not new. Variants on the magnetic rock can be found in such esteemed references such as the text of Ptolemy, which identifies such. The presence of a magnetic mountain at the extreme north may have seemed a natural connection for scholars attempting to explain the wonders of the compass. And although King Arthur and Merlin were said to be of legend and lore, it's references like these that begs the question, could there have been some truth to his tale? As you may have noticed on the original map, there was writing in each territory or sections of it. So I went ahead and used Google Translate and translated them. These translations are something that sounds like they're from a fantasy novel. They're absolutely amazing. This one is right here. Here is the Sea of Sweet Waters, the border of which the Norari Canadians say the report of the nets of those who are going to be. This one is right up here. In northern parts of the island, there are a pair of Bargu, says Paul, which lies so far forward toward the water as the Arctic pole may seem to them to weep at the south. So those of you that have been following me for a while probably recall when I did a story on the Smoky God. It's about a dad and a son who go sailing north to fish, but then just decide to keep going north to see what's there. And they eventually come upon these massive lands that have canals or rivers that are flowing through them with ice along each side. They barely make it to the center of the islands, but they do. And when they do, they encounter something amazing. It's a land with a race of giants. They end up staying there for quite a while, and it's absolutely beautiful. Their technology is a little more advanced and at peace and harmony. They offer them to stay. They end up staying for 2 to 3 years and then leave. Well, as they're sailing back home, they decide to head south as far as they can. The boat ends up crashing, and the son gets thrown onto an iceberg. His dad sank with the boat, and he eventually has to go back to his homeland. Here, the canal has its doors, and on account of its narrowness, has now reached a rapid flow, which it freezes. More fascinating is this. Below that, on the land south of the canal, I guess, it says pygmies dwell, here at the top, 4 feet long, which they call very much those whom they sow in the green land. This one reads, the ocean J9 breaking into the ports between these islands, it sacked 4 rivers, by which it's unseen to the north, and there it will be swallowed up into the bowels of earth by the rocks which is below the pole, and has about 33 leagues. So I'm sure you all have thought about it when I said the rivers flow into the bowels of earth. Could this be inner Earth? What do y'all think? Let me know in the comments. So I hope y'all enjoyed this awesome video. Very intriguing maps, very intriguing stories. Can't help but wonder if there is some truth to them, but either way, they're just fascinating, interesting pieces. So I hope you enjoyed. Stay in the love, stay in the light, be kind to others. Treat them how you want to be treated. Most of all, stay tuned. I am out.